It's my absolute pleasure to welcome Dimitar Karaivanov for our first keynote at the Kanban Community Days 2021. Many of us know him as the CEO of Kanban, a role in which he continuously shows us just how passionate he is for achieving extreme performance at scale and applying Lean and Kanban outside of our team. While he could certainly be entertaining us for many, many hours with his deep Kanban knowledge, this is not why he's here today. And here's something even more important to talk about. What can be more important than Kanban? We're indeed very curious. Dimitar, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to be part of this event. So let's get started. The title of my presentation for today is From a CEO to a Farmer. And that's not a coincidence because I participated in a TV reality show, much like Survivor, and it was called The Farm. A farm like a real farm with animals, barns, smells like animals, and many other interesting things. But I will talk about it throughout the presentation. I guess some of you are wondering, why talk about a farm and a TV reality show at a Kanban conference? What was this all about? Well, let me answer this question real quick. I've been dealing with Kanban for more than a decade now. We built a company on top of the Kanban method and the Kanban ideas. And throughout this whole time, I've always known that there is something more to Kanban. And it's not just the principles, the practices, the values, and the things that we try to master every day. There's something more. And I'm sure all of you have thought about these things, but it's so strange and it's not so tangible that we can just go ahead and verbalize it. Well, it took me more than a decade every day Kanbanizing the world and 3 months in a TV reality show to come up with this answer. So I thought, well, maybe it's worth sharing it with the world. Maybe not everybody has to go through a decade of Kanban and a TV reality in order to know what it was. So what is this in the black area in the yin and yang? What's that thing that complements Kanban? What's that force that it's at the same time opposing one, but at the same time complementing to Kanban? Well, let's find out together. This presentation is about this. To get you to the black area and the 3 question marks, I need to tell you many things. The first of which is about the show. This is where it took place. This is an old Bulgarian farm. The show is called The Farm, so it took place in a farm. And it looks habitable, but it's actually in pretty bad shape. The goal of the participants, 20+ people, is to get inside the farm and work on the farm every day to rebuild everything. The buildings, the rooms, the furniture, the barns, where the animals live, the stables, and all that stuff. So every week, there's a farmer who is the boss for that week. That person gets a lot of work assigned to them by the production. So the production comes in and says, this week you need to do this, and that. This is obligation of the farmer. Then the farmer takes these assignments and works with the team, these 20+ people, to get the stuff done. Unless the work is done really well, you don't get a lot of food. So all the participants, we were very motivated to do a great job and at least not starve to death. And starving is a real thing at the farm. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But because when I talk about a farm and animals that are being milked and all that stuff, you don't necessarily get a good idea of what exactly the show is about. I want to play you a short video, 3 or 4 minutes, which describes the true atmosphere of the show. And the last thing before I play the video, I need to tell you that there are duels. So two people fighting against each other in a battle, just like Survivor. The one who loses leaves the show, and the last person standing wins the monetary prize. So let me get you to the atmosphere of the farm. I will play a video, and if it doesn't play or if you can't hear it, please do let me know.
Безстрашният човек няма какво да губи.
Всичко или нищо! 3, 2, 1, старт!
Давай, Стар, давай!
Давай, Вите! Браво, машино! Давай! Убивай това дърво, машино!
Давай!
Пирон за пирон!
Ако мозъкът го иска силно, тялото може да продължава дълго време.
Ето това се казва борба! Всичко или нищо!
Непобедимостта е в защитата, а победата в атаката.
Ох, леле! Браво!
Победи себе си и ще спечелиш хиляди битки.
Абсолютно разлика! Тише! По-трудно, отколкото аз очаквах.
Искам да ви кажа, че това е извън всякакви мои възможности.
Ако понякога не се проваляш, значи не правиш нищо различно.
Можеш, Александре, можеш!
Човек трябва да може да губи в този живот.
Ще да победа.
Смелостта не е отсъствие на страх, а победа над него.
Няма бедни и богати.
Дуелът. Пътят към новия свят.
Няма бедни и богати. Важното човек да е човек.
All right. So this isn't exactly what you envision when somebody tells you that he worked on a farm for 3 months. In reality, this is a brutal show. I got in weighing 112 kilograms, and I got out 92. So I had lost 20 kilos in the course of 2.5 months. And I'm not complaining. It was good for me, but it wasn't because I was well fed, right? And actually, I got in the show because I wanted to, just take some time off, think about Kanban and the strategy, how we could go to broader markets with Kanban, and at the same time take some rest, because I envisioned I will work a few hours a day at a farm and then have some time off to just wander with my thoughts. Well, it was nothing like that. I worked my ass off like since 7 a.m. until 10 p.m., heavy physical labor with scarce supply of food. Well, 20 kilograms off, it speaks for itself. But there was a very positive side to that. and it was that I could experiment with Kanban at the farm. Remember when I told you that every week there's a farmer, and that's the boss of the farm, and the boss gets assigned some work? Well, I happened to be the boss of the farm in the second week of the show, and I have to somehow manage a lot of work across a team of many people, like 20 plus participants, who I barely knew. Well, guess what I reverted to? I reverted to the help of good old Kanban method. And this is the first version of the Kanban board that we used. Well, actually, it's not even a board. I'm not sure if you can recognize what this is. This is a pile of hay. It's dry grass, which we used to feed the animals, like the cows and the sheep and everything else. And while I was offloading them from the truck, I saw they had 3 ropes. And I thought, well, 3 ropes to doing done. What if I just tuck some notes under these ropes and then tell the team that this is what we have to do, this is what we're doing now, and this is what we have finished. So be it, we did it. I just took one pile of hay, put it in a central location where everybody could see it. I took some notes, I put them under the ropes, and in literally 5 minutes, I had a somewhat working Kanban system. And it took me only 2 minutes to explain to everyone what it was about. It worked because the second week, we were much more productive compared to the first week when everybody was super overworked and we had achieved almost nothing. And I attribute at least 50% of this success to this pile of hay and some notes. Before I move forward, I want to give you some context in what exactly environment this thing worked. If you've seen some of these reality shows, they gather all sorts of people. The more different they are, the better, because the show becomes more colorful. So Kanban, in this situation, basically and literally in the field, worked with people of all sorts of backgrounds. People from the city, people from the village, people with lower education, people with higher education. It worked with everyone. I was really surprised and very motivated because I've been doing this for 10 plus years, and I thought, well, maybe it's just really the best method we know today. How cool is that? But we didn't stop there. What happened afterwards was that we had a second version of the board. This time it was much more like a board. It had, again, sticky note, well, not sticky notes, but just notes on it. They were actually screwed with screws on the board. And it took me 25 minutes to build it. No need to explain anything further. It just worked like a charm. But what was more interesting was that after the second week, when I introduced Kanban using the pile of hay, I deliberately stepped back and I stopped talking about Kanban. I just stopped. And I did this on purpose because I wanted to see if anybody else from the farm would pick it up and keep doing it. To my surprise and pleasure, in the 4th week, a guy who is the farmer comes to me and says, "Hey, Dimitar, I want you to build a better board because the pile of hay is difficult to manage and it's a little bit messy. There's dry grass everywhere. So let's build a better board." And the farmer actually gave me the task to build this board. It was really nice. And moreover, throughout the end of the show, like 9 or 10 weeks more, at least half of the farmers would use Kanban, like this board, this very board, which is my basement right now. I took it for a memory. They were using this approach. They had no idea of Kanban before getting on the show, and through exposure at the show, they learned something, they liked it, and they kept doing it. But even that's not all, and even that's not the best. While this was on national television, literally every night throughout 3 months, people were watching these kind of things. After the show was over, they invited me to another show, like a morning talk show, and asked me to explain more about how we manage work with this strange Japanese method. So this is me in a second show talking about Kanban on national television. And I dare to say that Bulgaria's population is probably the most Kanbanized one per capita in the entire world, because I haven't, at least I'm not aware of Kanban showing up in 2 different shows with very high ratings and somebody talking about it. So this was a really nice and really curious thing that happened. I didn't plan it. I wish I was that smart to have planned it, but I didn't. And still it happened. With all that, I concluded something that I've known internally, and I guess you all know, that Kanban is simply a humane method and people stick to it naturally. So while we all knew this before my participation in the show, right now it has been documented on television, a true case study, and nobody can even argue about it because it was with people of all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of types and characters and all that stuff. So to me, it was quite a valuable experience, and it leaves no room for doubt that Kanban is humane and a sticky method. But, you know, there's always a but, right? Unless there was a but, the presentation would have ended here. While at the farm, I started realizing something about this 3 question marks, which I mentioned in the very beginning. What was this thing that was complementing Kanban so much? I think that being in this show and not being able to communicate with anybody outside this farm, and I had to mention that, but I missed it. This place is surrounded with a 3 meters tall fence. You cannot go outside. Nobody can come in. You have no phone, no internet, no television, and no means of communicating with the outside world. It's like being in a monastery, but you cannot get out of it. So I had a lot of time to really clean up my mind and extract things from my subconsciousness and be able to verbalize it. So this is very important. This is how I realized what this thing was. But before I tell you what it was, I want to get you a little bit back in time before I get into the show. Before I get into the show, I've been a 10+ year CEO of Kanbanize. I've been putting 70+ hour work weeks. I've had no real vacation in this whole period. I've always been on call, on email. Actually, for the first 3 years, I don't think I had a single day of vacation at all. Like literally working our asses off, right? Always performing at the top of our abilities. And I identified with my work. Somebody would ask me, hey, what do you do? And I say, hey, I'm a founder of Kanbanize. I really took pride in that. So this person gets into a reality show and starts realizing after a month had passed that this person hasn't thought about work at all in almost a month. So almost a month had passed, and I realized one day doing something with my hands that I haven't thought about my work at all. And this hit me hard, hit me real hard. This workaholic that's deemed to change the world with Kanban and Kanbanize and blah, 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 enters a show and in a month hasn't thought about his work at all. It really struck me. I thought they put something in the food to keep us delusional and perform better in the show, right? I started questioning, was it all that important? Like 10 years of my life? How could it be so important that I never think about it in 4 weeks? And I had my rational explanations, because entering a show where they record everything that you do and everything that you say, there are cameras in the bathroom, there are cameras everywhere. There's even a microphone in the toilet. I don't know who listens to those things, but there was a microphone in the freaking toilet. So it's a lot of stress. You sleep on the floor, you don't take shower for a week. It's a real hard stuff, And I rationalized myself into this kind of thinking, but I knew it's not the whole thing. I knew there was something more to it. And it's about people and caring about people. I was able to compare how I did Kanban with the team at the show, a team of strangers basically, and how I was doing Kanban with the team of Kanbanites, who I knew for 10 plus years, and the average employment age was about 5 years, which means that people tend to stay with us for a long time. So I was comparing these two. How am I doing Kanban with these guys, and how am I doing Kanban with these guys? And while on the surface, things looked similar in terms of mechanics and principles and practices, I knew that there was no freaking way that the team of strangers could perform at the rate of super well-oiled machine and team that has worked together for 5 years. That's when I realized that I'm in debt to my team. I realized that we haven't fought strong enough. We haven't been putting a lot of energy, as much as we had to put, into building more and more relationships with the people that we work with. In the Kanban world, we always talk about caring about people, and we do care about the people, but the narrative is more like we care about people through the implementation of the right methodology, the right decision-making framework, the right work in progress limit, the right thing, the right that. We always care about people through something. And at that point in time, when I had not communicated with my family and friends and colleagues for more than a month, I just realized that this is just a waste of time. Why am I not missing my work and I'm missing the people? I miss the people I work with. I missed all my colleagues. I missed my family. I missed my friends. I missed my dogs. I missed every single living creature. And why do I have to care about them through something? Just doesn't make any sense more to me. And after 82 days of isolation from the outside world, I realized that who you do things with is at least equally important to what you do and why you do it. And if somebody had told me that 2 years ago, I would laugh and I would say, dude, the why is such an important thing. Haven't you read Simon Sinek? Start with why. If I read Simon Sinek now, I think I'll still like it, but to me, it has to be start with who. And not in the tribal response sense that we have heard about in the Kanban community. It's start with who in terms of who is by my side. It's almost like this 300 movie. Have you seen the 300 movie where the 300 Spartans fight against the Persians? And yeah, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Who is by my side? I think that's the most important thing right now. And it's quite a transformation for myself because I've always been Mr. Efficiency, Mr. Productivity, Mr. Throughput. I've always cared about how do we get this metric better and better. But I knew at that time I had to prioritize who. And it's quite a transformation. So I want to talk about this transformation, how it happened and what it meant to me. I won't be telling you about all the personal things that happened in the journey of prioritizing who is by my side. But I want to tell you one thing which truly happened, and it means a lot. I never ever hang up the phone with my family. What I used to do, I would be in just a normal call. As a CEO, a lot of my work is just being on calls. And my mother would call me and I would hang up the phone. Even if it's the most regular thing where I could easily excuse myself and pick up the phone and talk to my mom. And I didn't do it. Why? Only after being at the farm where I felt like I was dead because I could not talk to anybody, I realized that some things in life are truly much more important. So think about this, guys. Are we really that busy? Are we really that loaded to not be able to talk to our beloved ones? Busy is the new stupid, so we should know better. Anyway, going back to my presentation on the professional side of things, I wanted to start building a lot more meaningful relationships with my team, with our colleagues, with my friends, with our clients, with our partners, anybody who has something to do with Kanbanize. I just knew at this point in time that meaningful relationships is what complements Kanban. The more meaningful relationships we have with the people we work with, the better we feel, the more productive we are. And I will try to prove that, but just give me a few more moments. So how do we build relationships? I don't think there's a textbook to that. How do we build relationships? It's a difficult job. I came to realize that when you want to build a relationship, you have to be very clear with yourself about what you give, what you can give, and what you want to get. And it's a personal thing. So everybody has to sit with themselves and think about what is it that I value in others and what is it that they value in me. I did this analysis for myself and I came to this. I will just read it out loud. To me, putting people in the center of your universe means helping them become the best version of themselves they could ever be. And I want to point out that this is a completely and strictly personal thing. Everybody has their own character, values different things. So if you want to go out and start building more and more and more meaningful relationships with the people you work with or the people you live with, you have to define this for yourself. Feel free to take mine, but there's a very good chance that it won't be valid for you. And then thinking as a CEO, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to somehow help everybody around myself to be better, and through that, get closer and closer, just as real humans. And this is how I think it should be done, and what I've been doing for a while now. And I think it works. So it's a two-way street. From my point of view, I need to demonstrate the right type of leadership as the CEO of the company. And the other side, whoever that person is, needs to demonstrate the proper motivation to always be better and better. And if we invest in both sides, this would inevitably mean such a relationship, which I repeat again, that I think it's equally important to what we do and why we do. So I said, okay, that should be easy. I'm the CEO of a company. I should know a lot about leadership. So let me go ahead and just define the best leadership style which I want at my company. I opened the Word file, I round up my sleeves, and I start writing up what leadership at Kanbanize means. And I read up 2 sentences, and then I block. I realized I know nothing about leadership in the sense that academia writes about leadership. I had some natural ability to lead people, which I was lucky enough to be born with, but I could not put it in words. I just didn't know enough. So I said, all right, let me then go ahead and research what the best leadership style is, which would help me create those relationships. And I start reading a lot about leadership, and this is what I get. And these are all different styles and types of leadership. And by the way, these are just not even all of them, but I had to remove the logo if I had to put more, so I stopped there. I didn't want to remove the logo. And what do we have here? Like 14 different types of leadership, and these are not even all. I was thinking, all right, I need to learn all of this. Okay, let me do it. So I started reading a lot about all these leadership styles, and that's how I wasted 1 month of my life until I realized that this was a lot like this. I'm sure you will have your favorite or best agile thing. So my question to the audience is, guys, what is the best agile thing? Is there such a thing at all? I think I'm wise enough. Well, I'm not very wise, but I'm wise enough to know that there's no one best agile thing, because all of these come equipped with great ideas. And you have to pick one idea from here, one idea from there, apply the Kanban's principles and practices, which are agnostic to all these, and just evolve your organization however it makes sense. And I wanted to know what was the leadership equivalent of Kanban. I needed something which is a little bit more agnostic, a little bit more universal. This leadership style that could help me in my journey. And then I found it. Apparently, there's a thing called authentic leadership. Maybe you all knew it. I didn't know it until recently. And I think that's the equivalent of Kanban. It's the start with what you do now style of leadership. And this is what authentic leadership is all about. It has 4 components. The first one is self-awareness. If you are to be an authentic leader, you have to be very aware of what you're good at and what you're bad at. For example, I myself, I know that I'm very good at conceptualizing things, and I completely suck at execution. So if there's execution involved, I will always talk to somebody, hey, can we do this together? I will do this part, you'll do this part. If I was this egomaniac, always trying to be the best at everything, authentic leadership wouldn't work. The second component is relational transparency. It means showing your true self to others, and that's extremely important. I will talk about authenticity in a while, but relational transparency is just letting people what you think, who you are, respectfully, of course. I'm not advocating that you go shout at people because that's who you are. Just let them know respectfully what you think and what you truly believe is the right way to go. Balanced processing is the true respect for others' opinions, being genuinely curious about contribution from the team you work with. It's not like you know it all. You inquiry other people, you discuss with them, and whatever works, works. It's not a requirement to take their opinions, but it's a requirement to be genuinely curious what others have to say. And the last one is internalized moral perspective, which is a trait of all inspirational leaders. They have to have something bigger to chase. It's just not money, it's not success, it's something higher. So if a leader has these 4 characteristics, these 4 traits, they are deemed is the word, to be authentic leaders. And I think that's a big step forward for me personally, maybe for the whole industry, because we break away from the dogma that you have to either be a charismatic leader or... Right. Sorry? Yeah, there was something. Or you have to be a servant leader, or you have to be this, or you have to be that. And I made a quick comparison between the leadership styles, where you can see that authentic is the only one ticking the boxes. Authenticity, well, authentic leadership. No need to be charismatic, well, authentic leadership. There's no holy truth, which to me is very important. Authentic leadership. And I want to spend a few moments on this one because I think it's very important. In the agile space, the dominant belief is that servant leadership is the best one that exists. And I'm not saying it's not good, all right? I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying that every theory, every person who claims that there's one most important thing above anything else, and this is the holy truth, makes me suspicious. And to believe that serving others is the only thing that you have to do, regardless of the context, regardless of what situation you're in, regardless of anything, I think is not optimal, is my personal opinion. And the last checkbox is that authentic leadership does not require you to produce new leaders after yourself. If you want to, do it. If you don't want to, don't do it, which is something that transformational leadership asks you to do. All right, so I had found the best leadership style. All I had to do now, if you remember the formula, leadership plus motivation equals relationships, all I had to do now is go find a way to motivate people. And you know it's going to be a disaster. So it's not easy to motivate people, right? And my go-to resource for motivation has always been Daniel Pink's Autonomy, Mastery, and Purpose. Because when I heard this like 12 years ago, I think it was, it really hit home with me. I had the autonomy, I had the mastery, I had this huge purpose to build a company. It worked great. But this model does not explain this phenomenon. How come there are people who come at work, they are very motivated, they do a great job, then they go back home, sit on the sofa, take a cup or how do you call it? I don't know, a cup of popcorn, watch Netflix, and just chill. In my head, this was not possible. If you were to be motivated, you had to be guided by purpose. And yet there are people lying on the sofa who happen to do a great job at work. It just, to me, it was impossible to relate these two. Fortunately, I got to know a thing called self-determination theory, SDT. Don't confuse it with STD, it's a different thing, which talks about almost the same things. 3 psychological needs: autonomy, competency, which is the same as master as far as I'm concerned, and relatedness. And this relatedness thing, it really explains why some people could be motivated at work and then lie back home in the sofa and eat popcorn. It's because they feel related. They feel a sense of belonging to the group, and that's what motivates them. To me, this is a much more reasonable model for the world we live in. And this relatedness thing is, to me, much more important than purpose, at least right now. So when people are feeling related, it's just satisfying a psychological need of belonging. We're social animals, you all know that. And the question is, how can we help people sense that they belong to a group? What can we do to trigger this relatedness? How can we cause relatedness? And the answer is that you can cause it through changing the environment. And the environment has to be a lot about autonomous motivation. So autonomous motivation is the motivation people experience when they do things out of free choice and not out of obligation. It's like when people play, when children play, you don't have to motivate them to play, they want to play. It's because they are autonomously motivated. And apparently there's a huge correlation between relatedness and freedom of choice. So the more you provide freedom of choice to the people, the more related they feel, which gives back to the equation of leadership and motivation, leading to better and stronger relationships. This is my secret recipe. Instead of being a somewhat autocratic leader, which I happen to be, or at least I used to be, I'm now deliberately, and I'm working with the rest of the leaders in the company, deliberately promoting free choice. Of course, we cannot say do whatever you want to do, but out of a certain set of options, we almost force free choice onto people. A little bit strange, but it did work. It did work. And I'm now approaching the last part of my presentation, which attempts to convince you that you should try these things. So why bother? Why should you bother about leadership, about motivation, about relationships, and so on and so forth? Well, I'm going to show you an email I got from a partner this year. And the email says, "Hi, Dimitar, I have to prepare a presentation to a committee who are reviewing the selection of 4 tools. All the regular, Jira, Azure DevOps, ServiceNow, and Kanban. I labeled the slide the big 4, which is the big four in thrash metal. I'm a metalhead. And I'm reading this email and I'm like, okay, so I'm not that worried how we will win against these because it has happened. Actually, right now we are removing one of these tools in a Fortune 100 company for an enterprise license. But I'm wondering how is it possible that a company like Kanban, a small company in Bulgaria, started in Eastern Europe, which is not the richest part of the world, as you all know. The company started with the money you would spend on a BMW 5, now competes with companies, some of which who have revenues larger than the GDP of my country. Microsoft has, I think, 3 or 4 times the GDP of Bulgaria. And yet, we are able to remove this tool from a Fortune 100 company and replace it with Kanban. How on earth is this possible? And I'm not saying that because I want to show off, all right? I'm saying this because I think there's a huge secret underneath this. And it's this one. Kanban and meaningful relationships are like yin and yang. This is a concept in ancient Chinese philosophy that talks about forces which at first sight somehow oppose each other, but actually they form a perfect balance, and through that balance they make themselves stronger. And I think that if we invest a lot of time, a lot of energy into building the meaningful relationships that we have managed to build it in our company with the team I talked about, then the company simply becomes unstoppable. When you have a true dedication to the Kanban method, which again I say is the best thing I believe we know today in the management universe, and when you dedicate yourself to building relationships with the people, with the clients, with the vendors, with the partners, truly caring about these people on the other side of the line, it's literally impossible for you to lose. And we at Kanban have focused on the Kanban part primarily for the first half of our life as a company. And that's why I say we have managed to achieve the success we have achieved with one hand tied behind our backs because we did not invest in relationships. But when we started doing this, oh boy, things just exploded. And that's why I think it's so important. That's why I think it works. And with all my respect to the founding fathers of the Agile Manifesto, I think they need to be updated. I think it doesn't have to be processes and tools over individuals and interactions. I think it has to be processes and tools deeply integrated with individuals and interactions. Only one or the other does not get you the super productivity and the super contribution you can deliver in the world. It has to be integrated. This is actually the main message that I want to bring today. It can't be just one or the other. And it's not easy to build it. It needs deliberate practice. It needs deliberate effort. And I want to close my presentation with this last slide, which takes us back to the farm, this show. What you see here is a bunch of people, the participants, dressed in national costumes, dancing a national dance called Choro, celebrating my engagement. When I was entering the show, I had my then girlfriend for 6 years. I had no intention of proposing a marriage to her just because we were happy the way we were, and I didn't care about marriage. But after a month in the show, I missed her so much, that I asked the production to call her, to bring her into the show where I could propose to her, and it was broadcasted on national television. And this is super cheesy. I have to admit, I find this super, super cheesy. I've never liked this kind of things. Proposing to someone on a baseball game, not my thing. But at that point in time, in the show, I absolutely didn't care. I absolutely didn't care. All I wanted is to have this meaningful relationship with my girlfriend, to become with a relationship with my wife. And these guys that you see on the image are having the best day of their lives. It didn't matter. It was in the middle of an old, crappy, stinky farm. I just didn't care. It's all about the relationships we build, guys. And that's why I named my presentation From My CEO to a Farmer, because building relationships is like farming. You have to plant the seeds, water them, fertilize them, take care of them, and then one day the fruit will be sweeter than anything else you've had in life. Thank you so much for your time today. It's really an honor. Thank you.
Perfect. Wow. What a lot to think about. Let me just quickly make sure that we all get back again to the big screen. Dimitar, when you were talking about free choice, I was immediately thinking of how the KCD was organized. We had such great support from so many parts of the community, and every single person was there because they wanted to be. That brought in energy.
Yeah.
Even so, the focus quite often was on the why and what, and not so much on nurturing meaningful relationships and the who that comes with it. You've given us a lot to think about, and I think it's a perfect start to the KCD. So thank you very much from all of us.
Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate it. Thank you.